Welcome to Rauta's Death Metal Reviews, and welcome to year 2025. This is one of the last review albums I've gotten to review in year 2024, but obviously out in 2025 because the new year and all. This time we traveled to Germany with a band called Cryptic Brood, and this one is Necrotic Flesh Bacteria. Very, very death metal sounding name, and with the cover image, it's almost like Walter White decided to travel back to early 90s or late 80s with the graphic design, kind of cartoonish take on death metal things. Things went south on the cover, and on the other side of this booklet, obviously the guys are having fun, drinking beer and all. Anyhow, everything on the cover and in this inside image should tell you the story. This is death metal, and that's pretty much of it to sum it down. But obviously there is more to that. This band has been out for quite some time, and as such honed their style to what could be also labeled as death doom, but it's a little bit trickier still than all that stuff. So let's give this one a go here in Metal Archive's site. Founded in 2013, now 3 albums out with some splits and whatnot, meaning this band has been active throughout the years, basically putting releases every year, with the exception of 23, I guess. There are some multiple releases in some years, so it all kind of evens it out. And yes, like I said with the splits and all 3 albums out so far. Here on Metal Archive site it says it's death/doom metal or whatever, and I think it's partially true with the 3rd album. However, I also think it's a little bit misleading, and we'll get into that now that we start talking about this particular album, which is here obviously the CD version. So let's click this one out here. Came out through War Anthem Records 1st of November. I got it in the mid-December, so really couldn't fit it in year 2024 in terms of getting the video out in time and all. First, once again, a new look to the art here. As you can see, this is very grotesque art. It's very kind of a mean-looking evil, but then again, with the graphic cartoonish design, it gives you a little bit of a okay, maybe that's not serious, that brutal and all, giving a little bit of a Cannibal Corpse vibe, especially the early albums when things were very cartoonish. So while it was violent, brutal, and dealing with death and all, the cartoonish take kind of evens out the bump in a way. But very fitting cover given the musical style and all. Now, as you can see here, probably, if you're watching, 9 tracks to some 40 minutes of music, which means that none of the songs are really too lengthy, and this is very, very good thing with this kind of stuff, but not exactly the grindy stuff, short and sweet, but the kind of a basic 4 or 5 minute tracks and all. Now, where this gets more complex, which is something I want to talk about, because this is going to divide people into roughly at least 2 different categories, is that this is a band that goes in very perplexing ways when we're talking about individual riffs here and there. So certainly, some tempos here are definitely giving you the vibe, especially early on with the album, that this is more doom death than just death metal thing. However, over the course of action, you will hear more say high tempo parts. While not exactly blast beating kind of a stuff, it gets more into aggressive, energetic stuff, which is not exactly doom death, more just like death metal. So I would take it a little bit of quotation marks to say it's a doom death. Maybe just death metal with a little bit doom in the mix. Maybe the doom death more applies to the earlier ones. I never heard the debut, I've heard the previous one, so I can only compare to that one. But like I said, some of the riffs are quite perplexing. I mean, it's not exactly the most technical, but it's definitely kind of a death metal thing with more like a curveball riffs. I'm trying to describe it, but it's gonna get kind of hard without you actually listening to the music. But some of the riffs are very bizarre. They're not your typical death metal riffs with either, the brutal take or thrasher takes, if we're talking about early school of death metal and all. But it's almost like getting a little bit proggy, but then again, not being exactly progressive death metal. It's almost like some of these riffs are like, let's do some jazz, or let's just go weird places where no man has gone before, And that's where it gets kind of like dividing. Some people are gonna find it fantastic because it's not really like these sounds so much like the other bands out there. Then again, if we have some people in the audience listening to, say, I guess, bands like Blood Incantation and the like, those people might be like, yeah, I really like that these riffs are like a little bit off the chart. So they're not your typical death metal riffs with rather simplistic, approach, but something like, what the hell is going on kind of a thing. Now, these twists and turns with the riffs are really something that I couldn't get my head around. I mean, some of them are more like, why do you have such, not necessarily complex, but weird riffs? Because they don't really like get me going on. It's almost like adding some weird ingredients when you're doing some kind of pizza or burrito, whatever. My point here is, it's almost like this pineapple on a pizza kind of a debate. Some people are like, yeah, it totally belongs to it. And some people are like, nope, I'm not gonna touch it if you go that far with your weird selection of ingredients, not to mention bananas and apricots and what have you. So Cryptic Brood is a little bit like that. Basically, the foundation, you have the pizza right there with the tomato sauce and all that. But when you have these curveball elements or ingredients for that word, then you're going to be like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. Maybe over time you kind of get this like into you like as a grower. But it's still quite of a hard pill to swallow, really. And on top of that, the production is somewhat crude. While it's not exactly bad, it's going to take some time to get used to. I mean, it's not really that polished or heavy or brutal for that matter. So if you compare this to, say, more technical nature of death metal bands, this will sound like a demo in that sense. If you compare this to more nowadays slam brutal death metal bands, this will just sound like too organic, not heavy enough, not brutal enough. So the question is, for which kind of audience this is meant to? And I don't really know, apart from the Blood Incantation thing. Now, if you take a look at this similar artist tab, maybe you will get a little bit of idea what's going on here. Like some people have compared, me included, Winter, because the Dead Doom parts kind of put you roughly in that category or band style. Then again, in a production-wise, it's more like Autopsy. Crude, raw, filthy, all that stuff. And Autopsy would also come into play when we're comparing the tempos and all that stuff. Then again, there are lots of bands I am not that familiar, so I was like, should I vote for this or that band in order to go for the similar artist tab? So I decided not to vote anything. But this kind of a similar artist tab should give you a little bit of idea, especially the ones that are most voted here. But I really wouldn't compare this to outright with Autopsy. Autopsy has more grooviness, which this doesn't really have. That's where this more like Death Doom thing comes into the play. So maybe bands like Morbus Chron or Obliteration for that matter are closer. I really can't say for sure because I'm not that much been listening to those bands that I would really like be honestly my hand on the fucking holy book to say, yeah, these are the bands that you would take it. So take this as a recommendation from the bigger audience. I'm a little bit on the verge like saying this is not necessarily my type of thing. I preferred the previous album where things were a little bit different. So this new album is almost like trying to pave their way to new territory and all. So it's not for everybody. Some people will no doubt like it. As you can see here, one review for 90% and all. Where some people would say like, no, I want my death metal either more straightforward, more thrashy, or more brutal. And this is gonna be a little bit on the side like, yeah, for acquired taste only. So maybe if you like pineapple on a pizza, go for it. If you don't, probably not so much. Whatever you decide, links are included in the description box, so you can start listening to the music right there and then figure it out whether or not this is your cup of tea. Now, off you go, enjoy some death metal, and have a great 2025.